Hi everyone! Today I want to talk to you about specific roles that can be associated with different cognitive functions or personality types, and what some common misconceptions, or at least topics of debate, exist around this topic. So all about that in the next few minutes. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's dive in. So I was mentioning the idea of roles associated with cognitive functions or with personality types. What I mean by that is that there generally tends to be in the community, online or offline, a specific type of association between personal or professional roles that certain types or certain cognitive functions might take over in society. A lot of the times we associate being a TJ, especially an ENTJ or an ESTJ, with the idea of being a manager. A lot of the times we associate the idea of FE, extroverted feeling, in FJ types with being someone who's harmonizing, who's supporting, who maybe takes the role of a counselor or a harmonizer in a specific group or family or context. A lot of the times we associate the idea of introverted thinking, so the TP types, with being the analytical one, the one who's the most likely to show analytical skills in a specific group, whether it's personal group or a professional group as well. And then when it comes to introverted feeling or FP types, we are more likely to associate this with being an artist or being a creative who's very connected to their feelings. And of course, like with any stereotypes, these associations stem from certain patterns that we have noticed in people or patterns that we have noticed while reading and studying the cognitive functions or the types. So obviously there's a certain level of truth to these correlations or these associations. It's true that a lot of ENTJs and ESTJs, and TJ types in general, tend to be quite good at managing, or a lot of them tend to find themselves in management, directing types of roles in their professional lives. It's also true that a lot of TP types tend to be quite analytical people and thrive in roles that focus on analytical skills, like, some sort of researcher, for example. Similarly, it's true that a lot of FJ or FE types tend to be very good at supporting and encouraging other people and might go for professional roles like teaching, counseling, psychology, coaching, and so on and so forth. And it is also true that a lot of introverted feeling or FP types tend to be very expressive through their creativity, maybe through some sort of arts, or maybe through a rather unconventional type of creativity expression medium. Maybe not conventional arts, but something else. However, this is something really important. We have to understand that type is not a way to just put a label on our foreheads and say, this is me, I cannot do anything else, and this is the only role I can take in life. And don't get me wrong, I am a full supporter of the idea that when we understand our type, our cognitive function preference, our temperament, our communication style, our interaction style, this helps us to navigate situations and maybe to find contexts for ourselves where we can better show our natural gifts, our natural talents. But this doesn't mean that we should completely ignore everything else, because life will often challenge us and life will often require us to be in different ways, to show different skills, and not all of these skills will come naturally to us. Let's say that naturally about yourself that you're not a leader. You're not comfortable in a leadership position, and maybe through your type you recognize the fact that it's easier for you either to be in a more withdrawn role or to be more of a follower. However, you might be pushed in certain situations at work where you have to take the role of a leader, maybe for a short time, not to have it as your main job or your main focus. Or maybe in your personal life, you will have to take the leadership in your family or in your group of friends in certain contexts. And simply by saying, oh, I'm not the right type to be a leader, and just, kind of throwing the responsibility of this onto someone else will not really help you long term. You might be able to do it once or twice and it might be fine, but if it happens on a more regular basis, you will need to, at least to a certain extent, to develop skills associated with that role that is not your preferred role. Let's say that maybe you're an ISFP and leading a team and managing a team is not something that comes naturally to you. And you know this because you know your type, that you thrive in other types of roles. And it's perfectly fine to go for those types of roles, but this doesn't mean that you should completely ignore developing skills in a leadership context. It's just an example, okay? Let's not overly fixate on this, but it's something important to keep in mind. Also, this is something that I like to talk about, especially when it comes to psychodrama. I've mentioned in some of my previous videos, I have been trained in psychodrama, and psychodrama is a form of group psychotherapy. I'm not a psychotherapist, but I have a 3-year-long training in this method. And what I have learned from this type of training, from this type of experience, is that sometimes the biggest happiness or the highest level of fulfillment in life can come from being able to be flexible to whatever life requires of us. Because naturally we might be an introvert or an extrovert. Naturally we might be a thinker or a feeler, a sensor or an intuitive, a judge or a perceiver, for instance, or any other traits you might want to associate yourself with. But in life, you will have loads of different types of challenges, loads of different types of obstacles, and they will require you to mobilize inner resources that are different than maybe what you are used to mobilizing in your preferred contexts. And as a result of that, if you don't have any skills in a different area, if you're not working on some of the weaknesses and insecurities that you have, it will be more difficult for you to respond to those more challenging life situations. This doesn't mean that you have to develop all those weaknesses or insecurities to the same extent that you have developed your natural skills or talents or preferences. It's probably not going to happen anyway, because we have a type for a reason. However, by paying attention to that and finding strategies to lift the parts of ourselves where we feel more insecure, we are more likely in the medium term and in the long term to find ways to contain our lives, to find ways to develop our emotional resilience. And as we all know, resilience is a very, very important skill and trait to develop in our lives. So my encouragement to you is maybe to take a few moments and reflect on your own tendencies, your own strengths and your own weaknesses, and ask yourself, what are some of the parts of myself that I tend to neglect? What are some of the parts of myself that I'm not so comfortable exposing to the world? And do I need the skills in my life? Are there situations where I would benefit from improving in these specific areas? And then if you find some of these skills, some of these areas that would need improvement or would benefit from improvement, I encourage you to make a plan to work and develop those skills. Maybe that plan can involve going to therapy or going to coaching or signing up for a class or working on it by yourself or with your friends and family, depends on the situation. But it's very helpful to be proactive about these things, because the more we do that, the more likely we are to feel empowered ourselves and to feel like we are not a victim to our circumstances. So these are my thoughts on kind of balancing the idea of knowing our type and knowing our strengths and our gifts and showing them to the world, versus also developing the roles that we are not so comfortable with. Also working on the parts of ourselves that we normally don't associate as being skills associated with our type, and learning to find ways to adapt them to the situations that are more challenging in life and where we are provoked or challenged to express these things. And as always, thank you very much for being with me. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really appreciate you, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope there were a few ideas in this video that inspired some self-reflective practices. As always, thank you very much for being with me, and see you next time with another video on typology.